Hello. Today I would like to discuss about the role played by different ions which are occurring in our human body. Mostly potassium ions, sodium ions and calcium ions. They play very important role. That's why for your syllabus role played by sodium, potassium and calcium ions is placed. So when we eat any food material, from this food material most of these ions, that means sodium ions, potassium ions and calcium ions, are taken. So these ions are supplied by mainly food material. Food material may be solid food material, or it may be different juices of different fruits, milk, etc. So veg or non-veg may be the food. From this veg or non-veg food material, milk and fruits, we get these different ions, sodium, potassium and calcium ions. When we think specifically about sodium ions, they are present in food material but in not large proportion. So whatever required amount of sodium is there for our body, it is not provided by our food material, and that's why we use common salt, that is sodium chloride, in preparation of our daily food. So sodium chloride provides sodium ions which we take from our food material. So when we think sodium, it is mainly coming from sodium chloride, and some amount of sodium is coming from food material. But potassium ions, they are present mostly in almost all food materials. So this material may be tea, coffee, then cocoa, then vegetables, then milk, fish, meat, fruit and potato. So almost all food material is rich in potassium, and this potassium is provided to our body system when we eat food material. These sodium and potassium ions, they are present in food material in the form of their salt. So sodium salt or potassium salt of organic acids, in this form, in the salt form, these materials are present in other food materials, in the vegetables or other food materials, where sodium proportion is more as extracellular material and potassium is present as intracellular material. Extracellular means sodium ions, they are present outside of the cell wall, and potassium ions, they are present mostly inside of the cell or inside of the cell wall. So this is intracellular. Potassium is intracellular and sodium is extracellular. Whatever may be, when we eat food material, these sodium and potassium ions, they enter in our body system and they play very important role. When we think about function of sodium and potassium, both have somewhat similar functions. First function of these ions, that is sensitivity of nerves or electrifying nerve impulse. We feel anything by touch. So this touch feeling is because of presence of sodium or potassium ions in our body fluid or in our blood system. Suppose I touch here, I feel that touch, right? So this signal travels along this nervous system up to the brain, and this transport of nerve impulse is because of sodium and potassium ions present in our body fluid, right? Second function of this sodium or potassium ion is pH regulation. So as we know, pH of blood system or our body fluid system is very important. If it gets disturbed, then our physiological actions or reactions in the body, they get disturbed, and that's why pH of the body fluid is kept constant, and for keeping constant this pH, sodium and potassium ions they play very important role. Then carbon dioxide transport, as in previous lecture already I have told you that when we inhale, oxygen enters in the lungs. From lungs it is transported to various parts of the body through hemoglobin, and when in the cells or body tissues a reaction occurs, CO2 is formed, and that CO2 comes in the lung with the help of hemoglobin, and this CO2 is exhaled. So transport of CO2, for this transport sodium and potassium ions play very important role. Then viscosity of blood is also very important. If blood is too weak, then circulation it will be in danger, and if it is too light, that means very diluted, then also problem creates. So proper viscosity of blood should be maintained, and this maintenance is done with the help of these sodium and potassium ions. For digestion also, these sodium ions they are very important, because we eat sodium chloride from our through our food material. So these sodium and chloride ions they are supplied to the body, and with the help of these chloride ions HCl formation occurs, which is present in the intestine of our body. And this HCl means chlorides ions are present in HCl. So these chlorides ions they are provided by sodium chloride which we eat. So in this way, this sodium and chloride and other ions they play very important role in digestion of food material. Then sodium potassium pump is there, as already I have told you that within the body of the cell sodium ions are more, and outside these cells potassium ions are occurring in larger proportion or more proportion. So here there is system in the cell. If 3 sodium ions are taken, only 2 potassium ions are thrown in this way. So there is sodium potassium pump, which we will see later. Next part of this point, that is role of sodium, potassium and calcium, that is role played by these calcium ions which occur in our body. So calcium ion is also provided to the body through food material. Whatever we eat food material or some liquids we drink, through these liquids and food material calcium ions are provided to our body system. Then almost all food material contain calcium ions. What are the functions of these calcium ions? First important function, that is hormonal action which occur in our body. For this hormonal action, calcium ions they act as a messenger. So calcium ions act as a messenger for hormonal action which occur in our body. Second function of this calcium, that is blood clotting. Blood clotting process is very important, because after accident, if there is if there is continuous flow of blood from our body, we can die. So clotting of blood is very important and that blood clotting occurs in presence of calcium ions. So calcium ions they play very important role in blood clotting. Then because of the calcium ions, conformational change in different proteins is possible, and that's why calcium is very important. Then in the body system there are various organoinorganic complex compounds. So in formation of complex compounds, calcium ions play very important role. These calcium ions they act bridge between different protein chains. Suppose this is one protein chain, this is second protein chain. Both these protein chains they are bonded with one another through these calcium ions. So calcium ions act as a bridge between two or different protein chains. Then because of the calcium, function of different protein occurs. So for protein function, calcium ions are important. As we do exercise, there is muscle contraction and again relaxation. So for this contraction and relaxation, calcium ions play very important role. Pyrophosphate physiology is also very important because energy is released after hydrolysis of this pyrophosphate, and for physiological action of pyrophosphates, which is necessary for our body system to offer different functions, different activities. For pyrophosphate function also, calcium ions are important. So in this way, sodium ions, potassium ions and calcium ions, they are essential for our body physiology, for our body activities or functions of different organs. So in this way, these are the role played by potassium, sodium and calcium ions.